Roll call, please.
Aaron Birch.
Here.
Deb Olson.
Here.
Robert Mullen.
Here.
Karen Sorensen.
Here.
Kevin King.
Here.
Paul Johnson.
Here.
Time for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item D on the agenda is approval of the agenda. The agenda has been prepared and disseminated in accordance with Board Policy 0166. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda the way it is written.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. On to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the informational session. Item A, student, staff, and community recognitions. There are no recognitions tonight. Moving on to point B, part B, it's administrative report. And Mr. Ham, would you come down and give that report, please?
All right, I believe you have a copy in your board docs folder, but Act 125, Wisconsin Act 25 was passed in 2011, and one of the requirements of that act is that we report the number of seclusions and restraints to the school board annually from the previous school year. So I do have good news to report. If you remember back last year, we talked a little bit about in previous years, there was not a real good tracking system in place, but there was a concern with the number of restraints about 3 years ago that were taking place in the district. We put some practices in place, some procedures. We've been following them for the last 2 years. In addition to providing professional development for staff and doing a lot of training in that area. Last year, you'll remember, I presented the numbers. We had 21 seclusions or restraints in the Spur Area School District. I'm happy to present to you tonight that that number is down to 8 from last school year. There were 4 restraints at the elementary, 4 restraints at the middle school. And I think that just kind of speaks to the things that our staff are doing. The trainings are starting to work. We're doing a lot of things with PBIS, behavior intervention planning, and I think that those things are starting to take hold and we're seeing those numbers come down. So
Thank
that's
you.
all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda are the board reports, the committee reports. I will do the Personnel Committee and the 2 special meetings that we had this month. I'm sorry, one of the meetings was in July, on July 16th, that we had a meeting. And we were all present except for Robert, and we also had some administrators present, and there were no community comments. And what it was an opportunity to have a conversation with the board and the principals. And I thank the principals for being there that night, and we had a very nice conversation with them. It's always good to know who you're working with or for. The other meeting was on August 6th. We had a special meeting, and it was a very short meeting. We were all present. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know there were four board members present and 3 could not attend, and that happens sometimes when we have a special meeting. And it was there were no community comments, and we had some personnel recommendations at that point, and so we approved them. We had some resignations and some hirings. And then on 8/6, then we had the Personnel Committee meeting, and at that committee, we considered creating a new position called the Instructional Support Specialist. Shannon Gundell expressed the need to create the new position and we are making a recommendation to the board. Also consider addition of a safety coordinator on an extra duty schedule, and the board will also discuss that tonight. And we reviewed the results of the school perception survey. And then we also discussed one of the coaching assignments. And that was the end of that meeting. Robert, if you would like to do the budget and buildings and grounds minutes for both 7/19 and 8/6, please.
Well, we met on August 3rd, I believe, in the media center. All members were present. Myself, Kevin, King, and Nathaniel, along with some administrative members and a few community members. Karen as well, and Paul Johnson attended. A few items were discussed. Railway Memories Museum caboose proposal. The Railway Museum in Spooner proposed that we consider donating the caboose at the middle school to them in return for a complete restoration and to make it part of the museum. That in return they would provide us with a storage facility, which we're currently using the caboose for. The committee took the proposal for review, and said matter will be presented to the full board for discussion purposes only tonight. So it is on the agenda. Nothing more was discussed concerning that matter. The next issue was a brief financial update by the business manager. The audit for the past year is taking place this month. The school projects a deficit of approximately $34,000 with a fund balance of $4.6 million approximately, keeping in mind that a fund balance is only an accounting function. It is not money in the bank. Next year's projected deficit is a little over $100,000. So we're certainly a long way from where we were several years ago. The next matter we discussed was the considering technology storage area network. Hugh Miller presented the need for a new storage network, that we have 2 networks and one is obsolete, and a replacement of that unit will cost about $45,000, which has been built into the budget. The committee approved of the idea, and we agreed to send the matter to the entire board for final discussion tonight, and I believe it is on the agenda tonight. The next matter was a discussion of the second round of the school safety grant application, and a second school grant application is being currently worked on with CSA 10. We have the possibility of obtaining $57,000, which would be added to the grant received for round 1 that we received a couple months ago. Items at the school which would be replaced or updated that we discussed were door lock replacements for all classrooms, window laminations, and a remodeling of the elementary school entrance. The committee thanked the administration for the update. We then discussed an update of the threat assessment policy and communication process. The administration presented a draft policy on possible policies when the school is under a threat. And the main question to be considered is, at what point in the process are the community members notified? And I believe said matter is on the agenda for tonight for discussion purposes only. The next matter we discussed was the Spooner High School HVAC issues. There is a problem with the HVAC at the high school. Not all parts of the system are working. They're continuing to work on it. Also, they discussed the need for a possible block building to be constructed near the soccer field in order to better gain access to an important service area, which would have something to do with our HVAC. I believe it's a geothermal system that we had installed when we built the high school. The next matter were the review of the vouchers, and the committee members looked at it. They found nothing unusual, and we conditionally approved it subject to full board approval tonight. We then discussed topics for the next meeting and suggested that any new topics be sent in a timely manner. We adjourned at 6:15 PM. Karen, you mentioned another...
Yeah, Robert, did you send in the minutes?
I wasn't here. I sent in all my minutes, but I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Correct.
And I assumed those minutes were read at that time. I'm not prepared to
Okay, they were not.
discuss them now, but if I
Did
had
you
been
send-
told, I would have.
Did you
I
send?
believe everything is in.
Did you sent them to Caitlin?
Yes, I did.
All right. We'll check on that, all right? Just make a note to see, because they really, I don't believe they've been presented yet, because none of us read those.
Well, I would normally send them to Caitlin,
Exactly.
and I would be prepared to summarize them at the next meeting, certainly.
Thank you. All right, policy minutes. Paul?
The policy meeting took place on August 6th at 6:30 PM. We had 3 items on our agenda. It was attended by Karen Sorensen and I, as well as Dr. Aslin. The first item for discussion was we discussed the committee structure policies, particularly the committee as a whole is on track. We discussed some policies and some areas that we see right now are concerns that could come up. But due to the fact that this committee as a whole is only going to be a 6-month trial period from the months of October through April, we discussed and basically said we're going to try to be civil during those 6 months, and we shouldn't have to develop new policies for something that's temporary. If we decide that it's going to be permanent in April, at that time we can sit down and go through the policies of what we've learned and what we should be adopting to move forward. So there was no action on that. The other item, there's a policy we're going to be reviewing tonight, was policy 8315, and the title for that policy is called litigation to hold. And what that is all about is that is a policy that has been recommended that we adopt, and what it is discussing is when the district is put on notice that there's potential litigation, whether we're involved or even third-party litigation, that we have a due responsibility to preserve those items to make sure that nothing is lost from that point forward. Once we're put on notice that there's a potential litigation for somebody, even if it's not involving us, we have a responsibility to preserve. We have another discussion. We discussed the administrative guidelines update. We have 3 new administrators this year, and our administrators are going to be meeting with the Neola people and learning how the policies are going to be implemented within their specific buildings according to the Neola policies, to make sure everybody's on board there. So that was just information only and no action. And then there was a motion to adjourn at 7:01 PM.
Thank you.
That's it.
And there was no curriculum meeting.
There was no
this month.
curriculum tonight,
All right,
correct?
so no report there. And then finally, the school community relations minutes.
We met tonight at 5:45, and the first item on the agenda was a homecoming Veterans Appreciation Night. We discussed we will be having T-shirts that will be printed, homecoming on one side and veterans on the other side. Those will be for sale, and that with some of the proceeds to help the veterans out. We will have hats out for the first 50 free hats for the first 50 veterans. Those will be free. They're actually a very nice looking hat. We tentatively also have a flyover scheduled in that. The Honor Guard will be presenting at Anthem, and Joe Weiss has offered to sing the anthem while in uniform. Next item on the agenda was a Project Strive update. Last Thursday night there, Dr. Aslin and myself had met with the Lions Club to present this to the Lions Club. My sense was, I think things went pretty good, but they will be having another meeting to vote on it, and they will be getting back to us. Item C was committee of the whole transition, and community relations considerations and that there. This is something we'll be transitioning to in October. We'll have a regular board meeting and then just the committee of the whole meeting instead of having 2 nights of committee meetings and that. There will be live streaming of the committee of the whole meeting. There will be minutes taken of the committee of the whole meeting. The public will have a chance to have input at the committee of the whole meeting. So tentatively, well, not tentatively, it will happen in October, and it'll be for a trial 6-month period to see how that goes, and then it will be reviewed. Next item on the agenda was promoting Spooner, #SpoonerProud. We've had a generous donation of $500 that has allowed us to get 1,600 stickers. They will be a 5x1 sticker. We will be giving those out at the open house this year. We will have apparel available at the school store with brochures that we can get out ahead of time so you can kind of see what things will be offered. And hope to have the school store going between the high school and the middle school for events. That we will also have our #SpoonerProud on our digital signage around the district. Next thing on the agenda was 30, 60, 90-day planning, and the thing after that was also discussion of the Jack-o'-lantern festival participation. They kind of rolled into the same topic. And that, in the past, our district has, drama kids have helped with face painting and provided some of the zombies for the run. We are planning on doing the same thing again this year. We are looking at starting a big buck contest during deer season, and that there with a winner to get a gift certificate to the school store. Then the last thing on the agenda was legislative updates. And August 16th, the Department of Justice announced a second round of safety grants, of which we had announced earlier that we are in the process of applying for. The details on DPI's budget request was released. They're seeking $600 million, a large part of that going to special education as categorical aid. And, but again, it's an election year, so it's a, I hope that happens. Then study committee to use the investment of common school fund to meet, and that'll be on August, well, that was on August 16th and that there. And that is monies off of the lands that the state has. The state treasurer sits on the board of that. It's one of the positions that they were looking at doing away with in our state. And we would be seeing library monies available for the revenue off of those properties. We adjourned at 6:31 tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for all those reports. The next item on the agenda is item 4, community comments. Per Wisconsin statute 19.83 parent 2 and 19.84 parent 2, the board will allow public comments. The community comment session will be limited to 45 minutes. The time for each individual will be divided by the number of people signed up for community comments. And tonight there are 2 people signed up. The first person will be C. Tim Belter from the town of Rusk, talking about the caboose proposal. Tim, if you would come down to the microphone, please. That way the people at home can hear you. They'll see your back, but we'll see your face. Thank you.
It's my best view. I presented a proposal that the museum board put together at the committee meeting in August. I did pass out or send copies to the rest of the board members, and basically we're just looking at trying to bring the caboose down to the depot for restoration, and the exchange would be that we would provide another storage building. I also suggested that we could work with the Industrial Arts Department, students to have them design something, and we would foot the bill for them designing and building another structure. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. In my proposal originally, I mentioned the history of the caboose. It is one of the only Omaha cabooses left in existence. Its original number is 6063. It was built in entirety in Hudson, Wisconsin at the foundry and car shops in Hudson. So it's a unique caboose, and we would like to see it restored and have it in a place where community and other visitors can have an opportunity to go through it and look at what an original old railroad caboose looked like. So, any questions?
Anybody have any questions at this time? All right, thank you, Tim.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
And the other person to speak tonight is Janet Medley from the town of Casey about the music program.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janet Medley, and I've been teaching music for 40 years, the last 15 years at St. Francis de Sales, teaching ages 3 through 13. My daughters are Rachel and Laura Medley. Laura just graduated, Rachel the year before, so now I'm going to be an empty nester. And the first thing I want to share with you is how important the Spooner music program has been to me and to my family. Although my daughters didn't join the Spooner system until they were freshmen, the most important memories they have of attending Spooner have been their musical experiences. Both of them have either been on stage with the musical or in the pit band or going to solo ensemble, performing in select choir at state, going to Dorian Festival. That is the first thing they think of when they think of their memories here at Spooner High. Now that they're leaving, of course, my interest in the school doesn't change because I still have very talented and excited students who are coming into the school. And I know you have some decisions before you tonight and the next coming weeks about how you're going to handle filling these most important music teaching positions at your school, our school. And I just want to emphatically state how important I feel it is for us to keep going forward and keep trying to improve and to keep building. And I know budget concerns are a concern, but sometimes we miss how important it is on an individual basis, these wonderful, beautiful musical experiences. In general, though, I have noticed that, at the middle school level, I've been a little sad for Spooner that when I go to solo ensemble, Spooner is clearly the least, participatory school. Most schools of the same size or smaller have at least 70 to 90 events. Spooner usually averages about 20 or less in the middle school. And we could do so much better than that if we just had a little bit more passion, maybe a little more support for the music programs, because these solo ensemble events, especially in middle school, these are the things that build your music program for the high school. Your high school music program starts minimum at 5th grade. With me today is one of my students, Alexander Allen, and he's had some marvelous middle school experiences, and he's going to be going to perform his French horn in the state orchestra in Madison in October, and he is so excited to be in band for the full year. But of course, of the 7 graduates, 6 of them are coming into the music programs here at Spooner, and there are a lot of questions and and I will say concerns about what their future is going to be at Spooner. We all know Josh Burkish, a great guy. He was salutatorian, and when he wrote his biography for scholarships to the colleges that he applied for, he said how music was the thing that developed him as an individual and as a successful person. His experiences in piano and in singing in the select choir and getting up and performing his art in front of people. He was very withdrawn as a freshman and sophomore. And it really are the music programs that bring these kids alive. And, we've built it. They will come. This facility is the envy of everyone in the Red Cedar District. This theater, just the soundproof rooms, this incredible choir room. And all we got to do is find the right people to come in and just lead and to build the music program. It's a good program, but we could do so much better. And I sincerely hope that you will maintain 2 full-time music positions, because that's really what a school this size deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
All right, the next part of this meeting is the discussion and action part, and it's part 5, personnel recommendations.
You have one resignation before you this evening. Tate Nordback resigning a health aide position with 2 years of service in the district.
Is there a motion to accept that resignation?
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation.
I'll second that.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Let's give Tate a round of applause for 2 years.
You have
Yep, go ahead.
5 hiring recommendations. Elizabeth Backus, middle school volleyball coach, replacing Bobby Jean Wilson, recommended by Mr. Lucius. Monique Clark, middle school part-time administrative assistant, replacing Rachel Schumacher. Michelle Cobdy making that recommendation. Betty Klug, middle school paraprofessional, replacing Denise Parnell, recommended by Mitch Ham. Timothy Stillwell Jr., high school assistant boys soccer coach, replacing Andrew Walt, recommended by Matt Lucius. And Alicia Hagberg, elementary school paraprofessional, replacing Mary Ellen Rogers, recommended by Mitch Ham.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve those hirings?
I'll make a motion to approve the hirings.
I'll second.
And a second. There's been a motion and a second for those 5 positions. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of donations.
About a couple donations coming before you tonight. You have a donation from the Thompson family to the Spooner Proud campaign, $500, and a donation from Jim and Kathy Deutsch for the airplane project, a donation of $400.
I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, the motion has been made to accept the donations and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. And thank you very much for those donations. Ladies and gentlemen, keep them coming. Thank you much. Fundraiser request.
You have a fundraiser request before you tonight from the Spooner High School Drama Club, seeking to solicit donations to support theater productions at Spooner High School. And that would be done here in the high school and in the surrounding communities during this upcoming fall. And this is done because since the club was founded in 1990, community donations have been used to assist the production of many different plays at Spooner High School. Usually donations from 60 plus donors, which range between $2,800 and $3,600. And the drama club is looking for your approval for their work to solicit donations.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the fundraiser request by the drama club.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those just say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Once in a while, I lose my train of thought. Thank you very much for putting up with me. All right, the next item on the agenda is the facility use request, but there are none for tonight. caught that, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
All right, moving on to the next item. It is to consider student overnight and out-of-state field trip request.
Yeah, Mrs. Olson.
All right, Mrs. Olson Rosenbush, OR, would you come up and give us a little bit of an update on that?
Sure. I'm not sure what kind of update you would like,
Well,
but
just tell us a story about what you're going to do.
the request is to take students to National FFA Convention, something that the Spooner chapter has done since I've been here and for many years before that. This year, in fact, we've got a member who will be recognized on stage. She's not a high school student any longer because those kids can't earn their American degree until they've been out of school for 12 months. But the plan is to take 3 high school students to convention. We usually leave Tuesday evening. We take a bus with Section 1, which is the northern part of the state of Wisconsin. Last year is the first year we spent the first night overnight, and then we tour usually on Wednesday. So we leave Tuesday night, we tour on Wednesday, get to the convention actually Wednesday evening for the reflection session, and then we attend sessions on Thursday and Friday, and typically leave after the final session Friday and ride the bus through the night to get back to the Rice Lake area by 6 a.m. Any questions?
No, and thank you for the information that you provided to us also. Are there any questions of Mrs. O.R.?
Nope.
Okay, very good, thank you. So, I would like to have a motion to approve this student overnight and out-of-state field trip request.
Motion I make.
Yes, you made the motion, very good, Robert.
Second.
And Kevin has seconded. Is there now any discussion or any questions? Very good. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider student academic standards for the 2018-19 school year.
Okay, part of your annual requirements as a school board are to hear what the standards are in the core areas and to adopt those standards for the upcoming year. So in mathematics, our standards are based on the Common Core state standards, as are they in English language arts. Science is the next generation science standards, and social studies, the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards. And the recommendation be that you adopt these standards, that they're in effect for the 2018-19 school year.
I'd like to hear a motion
I'll make that motion.
and a second. I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is item G, the threat assessment and communication, to consider the threat assessment and communication process. So-
I'm going to go.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So you have 2 pieces in board docs before you, and these are pieces that came on the heels of the early May incident at the high school, and our commitment was to take some lessons learned from that event and put them into play in our crisis response plan. So that's the work that's been occurring since then. The first one is a set of processes for a school incident that really give guidance to the public information officers. And in the district crisis plan, you have public information officers, or PIOs, at the building level and at the district level. And so these processes have been reviewed by the chief of police, by the sheriff and under sheriff, as well as by the school resource officer. And as Mr. Holen identified in his committee report, the question there will be for the board to come to some consensus at what point the community would receive notification on this from the school through the public information officers. The other piece that's in here is a threat of violence matrix, a threat assessment matrix. Again, we worked up the draft and then brought this out to get input from our law enforcement partners. Real briefly, the intent of this matrix would be for when a threat of violence comes up at the building level, for for that group of building level staff to do a quick assessment of the situation as it has been presented to them and make some decisions on where to go with that from there. When law enforcement would be brought in, a copy of this would be handed off to law enforcement so that much of the screening work that they would have to normally do would be complete. And then this would also be part of a file that would be kept over time so that there's a record when these sorts of incidents come up, and provides more information for situations as they may come up in the future. So again, with the communication process, looking for some direction from the board on when you want to see communication go out to community stakeholders. And the threat matrix, the intent with both of these documents is that they would become part of this ready reference, which is an extract of our school district safety plan. And this is a ready reference that each staff member has. So it's something that they have, and they have the ability to turn to the different pages and put these pieces to use.
Craig, I can see on the, well, first of all, let's have a motion so that we can discuss this.
I'll make a motion for discussion purposes.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. And Paul, would you like to start the discussion?
Sure. Looking at two different steps here, I see that the matrix is something that we would be doing internally, which is perfect. I mean, that we need to be able to gather information from whoever has something to present. We need to document where it came from, and we need to decide what we're going to do with that. The first part of it was where we're talking about notification of the public as to what's going on in our facility. So if somebody were to go by this school and see an ambulance and 3 squad cars in front, just because a student's having a medical condition doesn't mean that we need to get on board and clarify it with the community, because social media is now all of a sudden reporting that there's something big happening up at the school. It's really nothing. And the question is that each and every thing that happens, we cannot come up with a scenario on how we should be responding to that. But the most importantly is when we do respond would be, as the superintendent said, you talk to the chief and the sheriff, and you've got public information officers. The most recent scenario we had here was, I talked to the chief myself, and he said that people within this district, I knew about it obviously because I was a board member, I was informed, but when people wanted something to go out into the community, the chief himself said, we're not ready to put something out. We're not ready. And my thought is, because this was my occupation, is that if we were to call law enforcement and turn the situation over to them, that's what we've done. We've turned it over to them. And it's for the safety of the public and the safety of our students is number one, and safety of the officers. We shouldn't be doing anything unless we've clarified it with them. If we were to go into lockdown, we don't need to put out a notification to the community that we're in lockdown, because we don't need all the parents coming to pick their kids up while we're in lockdown. And we can't control what's going to happen. So I'm real concerned about putting any information out involving anything that happens with law enforcement until we've clarified it with them. So that's what I'm real concerned about, is that we may be stepping into an area that they don't want us to go to. Some of these, it might take weeks or days for this to figure out what's really going on, and I don't want to put false information out in our community and have those people come back to us and say, how come you told us this, but that's really not true, it's really something different. Well, we went with what we had at the time, but the public doesn't understand that. They want answers right now, and if we can't give it to them, we need to say, we can't give you anything right now.
But if you're, excuse me, if you're talking about that, with an incident commander, they're going to make those decisions, and that incident commander could be sheriff, police officer. Those would be the ones that would be giving out that information, not our public information officer.
We would be giving it out after they've approved it to be given out.
Right.
Just a real quick point of clarification, when you see the term incident commander used, that's a school district person.
Oh, it isn't,
It's either a
okay.
building principal, dean of students, or the superintendent.
Okay, so you're not talking that as an outside incident
Right.
commander?
That's
Okay.
part of our district safety plan.
Okay.
And that was their concerns when I spoke. And the other thing, we do have a sheriff's election coming up in 2 months, and there will be most likely a new sheriff because the sitting sheriff is not running again. Maybe we should come back and have this meeting later before we implement something, make sure that we're all on the same page. I'm real concerned about sending any information out without clearing it with them because they're the ones doing this criminal investigation. If it gets to that.
Well, it says on the top of the page, of the first page, it said the purpose of this communication process, which is pretty clearly stated in here, knowing that the school administrators or the building administrator is the incident commander in this situation, and the PIOs, the public information officers, are the lead secretaries or the building secretaries. The purpose is to keep the public informed during an emergency situation, to increase an atmosphere of safety and to dispel rumors. Well, we know with social media, and of course no students use their phone during the day or contact their parents, so we could easily just dispel those rumors, just have all students turn their cell phones off. But I know that's not realistic. My concern is that not every incident that happens at our school does involve the police department. And my understanding is that if the police do come, then it should be their communication. As soon as they're on site and they take over, then it's up to them for the communication. But we have those situations where things happen and all of a sudden parents are calling the school and there is no police involved because it's not happening. You know, it's not happening the way that it has been indicated by the various people that send that out. And I think that we need, I know, Paul, you would like to maybe wait a month or two, or, you know, November probably, when the election is final. But our staff needs something in their book. We need to do something now. We might change it in the future. I mean, it's going to be printed, it's going to be bound. We can always change a policy, but I think that we should attempt to make a decision tonight on at least part of this.
I agree, and that's what I'm saying. The first part is wonderful, and that's something that we can handle. My concern is once you call law enforcement in, that's when we should be stopping.
Correct. Okay. All right.
Dr. Aslam, when you met with law enforcement and reviewed this, what was their response to this, the stages and how this is laid out?
You know, it was largely positive, and you know, in all the reviews that we did, we left it with them, and they were good enough to reflect on it and get some feedback from other personnel within their respective departments and get back to us. So, you know, they thought it was good to have a series of steps and procedures in place where they all stopped short of was saying, and here's when we think you ought to issue this information up, because that, you know, that really is a matter of policy to be decided here by the school board.
I mean, there's nothing saying that, I mean, we adopt this tonight and we do get a new sheriff and he does have a different concern that this can't be revisited, right?
That's what I was hoping, yes. Yes, so the purpose of looking at this is to keep the public informed, to increase an atmosphere of safety, and to dispel rumors. So it's like, it's about when do we put it out and what do we put out. It's like there's, what if you heard there's something happening at the high school. I mean, I don't know, because you can't be real pointed as to what's happening. There's something happening at the high school. Parents, please don't come to the school. There's something happening at the elementary school. Parents, please don't come. What's going to happen?
But everybody's perception of trouble or problems is different.
Oh, it is.
So you could have Mr. Smith saying, my kid's fine, and you could have Mrs. Jones going, oh my goodness, I'm going right there and I'm picking her out of school.
Exactly.
So
We can't stop that sort of thing, but
Yeah.
words can't stop people from taking action, but we need words written so that they know what we're going to do, that we're going to put out a statement of some sort. And Dr. Essen, there will be some statements that will be pre-prepared, maybe. I mean, we can't cover every item, but some suggestions would be done. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And it looks like the power is put, because the situation varies so much, we have no idea how to predict these sort of things or the moving pieces to it. But in this policy, it looks like it kind of has checks and balances to make sure that it's not all in one person's basket. It goes back and forth, and it has to be approved before anything is released. And if our main goal is keeping children safe, then informing parents who, more than we want to keep children safe, want to keep their own children safe, and it is within their right to know what's going on with their children, to what extent, I mean, I believe full extent, then they need to know and make their own decision. And yes, we can't release details on everything, but to let them know that there's an incident and how that should be communicated varies based on the incident. But when it should be communicated is as soon as we know something's going on. Then the details of how much is released is dependent on the public information officers and the incident commander. And I think that this lays that out pretty clearly, gives flexibility in the policy as well as clarity in when parents should know what's going on, not the detail of what's going on necessarily.
I could see the potential of rumors getting blown out of proportion, and maybe this has happened before. Have we received phone calls from parents when they see law enforcement up here when they're doing something that's just a drug search? You know, I could see somebody overreacting. It's like, why are the cops there, and potentially calling?
So, Dr. Essen, do you want us to say a time, a point, like at 3 minutes after this incident occurs, we need to get something out to the parents? Is that what you're looking for?
I think it really, for the board, and I know that those that are watching don't have the benefit of seeing the same documents, I think it really boils down to item 1C. 1C as in Charlie. At what point it would be the board guidance, would be the board consensus that incident commanders ought to be releasing PIOs to be making communication with the public on this.
So if we tie that into our threat assessment, could it be as soon as level of threat has been determined? I mean, that would make sense to me, that we're able to then say, I don't know though. By the time you figure that out, people know something's going on generally.
I think this, well, yeah, we can't know for sure because we haven't used this matrix for real. If the board adopts it, the intent would be that this would be a document that would be filled out quickly. Yes.
So if you said, I mean, this is just thinking aloud, but if you said a threat assessment is in process, as soon as we know the level of threat, further communication will be sent out. Is that possible? I don't know. It doesn't.
That's enough to get everybody to jump in their car and come pick their
It is, but how do you, I mean, this is a really, really fine and difficult line to walk. How do you inform parents and community without causing panic?
The issue is it necessary? I believe that it would be an inconvenience and it will be a hardship for parents to not know what's going on. But it's the safety of the students that we cannot have people coming to the school and barging through those doors to pick up their children as we're in a lockdown. We don't have enough officers to stand at each door to screen parents and to stand, because we don't have enough to handle it. And that's exactly what will happen. Our parking lot will fill up with cars coming to pick up their children just as they do every morning to drop them off, but you'll have twice as many.
But
And that's my concern, is that I understand it'll be a hardship to not know, because you're just operating on Facebook. But in reality, our priority should be safety of our students, safety of our law enforcement people that are coming here to deal with this, and they might not even know what they have going until 20 minutes into it, or even an hour or two.
I fully agree. But,
So-
and we sort of, when we had this incident last year, we talked about a lockdown is different than the situation that we faced. And that gray situation was sort of why things snowballed. And I think that from what I had heard and understood was that parents would have liked to have been given the option of even sending their child to school that morning. So because we timeline knew something before. Do you see what I'm saying? So in an incident of a lockdown, I don't think that this is applicable, but it's the stuff before that, the mild threats that we're talking about. And how do we inform when we know something before? That was where I heard a lot of parents upset about. The fact that we may have known more than we let on before we knew it. And the timeline has been released, and we didn't know anything. I know all of that, but that was the concern. And so I think that, I don't know, it depends on the level of threat.
And this most recent scenario that brought this whole topic up, there was a lot of concern. A lot of people made a lot of comments that were not true, and to everyone's compliment, nobody got involved in those conversations, nor should we have gotten involved in those conversations. We didn't. 2 weeks later, when the meeting was held with everybody that blew up, the public meeting that was held, 2 parents showed up. So what was a huge discomfort at the beginning for the people, I understand it was hardship to not know. But once people understood what was going on, they settled down and we're back to normal again.
Well, let's recall what those parents wanted. Does anyone remember what those parents said that they wanted to have in place going forward?
They wanted to know.
They wanted to know, basically.
I understand. I understand they wanted to know.
I agree with Aaron. What happens, I think that I would err on the side of informing parents as we know, because it certainly does dispel, it puts out the truth from the administration as to what's going on as we know it, not what some kid on the phone is saying, and this kid and that kid, which are all different stories. It comes from the administration, number one. And number two, what if something really bad happens and we haven't notified these parents? That would be even as tragic, not giving them the opportunity to know and to make their own decisions as what they want to do. And it's a bad situation any way you look at it. There's no good solution, but not informing parents as we know is even a worse result, because if something were to occur that was terrible, not telling them would be even more horrible. So I think of all of the lousy solutions here, you have to tell the parents.
And
you just have to.
When?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
And
As we know it.
My response would be, the chief of police was approached and said, can we put this out to the public? And he said, hold on. Hold on, is what he said. And that's where we're at. Are you going to go along with the people that you put in charge to figure out what's going on, or are you going to overstep and go against them and put them in danger? Because we don't know what's going on. They might not know
But
what's going on.
I don't think in that instance he meant hold on as far as not informing anybody. I think he meant hold on with the actual details of the incident. That had nothing to do with actually informing the parents. The hold on was not because of he didn't want anybody to know anything. It was, you can't give those details out, but you can tell those parents that there's something going on in the school, period. I mean, because there's going to be a million different people saying a million different things. You know, every kid in this school is going to be going, oh my goodness. But I don't think that's what he meant as far as informing people. I think he meant the details of that incident. That's what he meant by hold on. But then I don't know that either.
Well, Deb, if you got a text or a sky alert that said, there's something happening at the school.
I was in constant contact
details.
with my daughter that day, and she stayed in school, and I told her to stay there because until I know something concrete, and I was in contact with her by text, and she said she did not feel threatened at that time. So I told her to stay here.
I had a similar situation in that myself there because I was getting texts from my daughter and that there, she wanted to leave, and it's like, no, I want you to stay right where you're at because that's where you're safest. I don't know,
Exactly.
at that time, I did not know if the threat was inside
Or
outside, what it was. But I understand your concern about, having parents show up, but I would rather have them show up with some facts than to have one parent contact another parent, all off of a student that contacted a parent. I think if that information is going to be held by the parents, it should be by the district. We should be letting the parents know.
So-
It's not perfect, but
No.
whether we like it or not, we're going to have parents here.
Dr. Haslam, do you think that it's feasible to put in under C once, and is that a timely enough approach that once the threat level has been assessed, then it's released? Or do you think that's not timely enough?
I think I'm going to defer to the board as a policy-making body on this. You
All
need to
right.
come to consensus, and we will execute whatever you decide as the best course of action here.
Okay, thank you, Erin, for that suggestion.
Would parents have access to this? Because knowing the level... No.
No, because they
No,
won't.
this would be part of our staff response plan.
Is there a way to communicate how to qualify threat level 1, 2, and 3, I guess?
I think there's, there certainly would be a way to communicate what steps we would take without going
Details.
into the minute details.
Because as a
that we
parent, I
pose.
feel, knowing that we have something like this in our policies, that there's clarity for all staff in the action that they should take and the steps that they need to abide by, gives me a peace of mind. So I would hope that that would help with other parents in the district. I think that a threat level should be assessed before information is released. I know that will cause a little bit more time crunch, but
Well, I think you would know if there's a threat or not. I mean, looking at and putting it in the
Yes,
matrix,
and-
there may not be a threat.
right.
It might not
So then you
any-
wouldn't need to release information. And that's
Exactly.
why this is important and a good piece to this whole thing.
Right. So your recommendation is?
My recommendation is that we include in 1C that it will not be released until approved by the incident commander and threat level has been assessed, or threat level assessment completed.
Did you get that, Trish? Okay.
Do you have something to say?
Does that give you an answer, Dr. Asher?
I think it does.
Okay. All right.
Can we allow a comment or no
Oh, certainly.
from?
I mean, from out there?
Mhm.
No.
Okay.
We can't recognize
What-
someone
what
to
we've
speak?
done-
No.
We can't
Ken?
recognize
What
someone.
we've done here is really put it right back on to the administration to use their own judgment like they had in the past.
And is that in there?
This is exactly what we're doing. So if they were to sit back and say, I think we handled it correctly the last time, I'd do it exactly the same way again.
Unless,
That's fine. We're
unless
Does
the
anyone-
police are on site, correct?
correct.
Correct. And is that in
And I think
there?
that's what they already have been doing. And
Is-
we're supporting them by allowing them to continue to make those decisions. And I would hope that we don't come back and criticize them because we are allowing them to make those decisions, and that's what I want.
Okay.
And that's what we've done here again.
All right. Deb, did you have something else to say?
No.
Okay. So, can I have a motion? Oh, we have the motion.
Can I
for-
ask one question?
Oh, you can.
An alternative option to this is, what is that we would, anytime that there's any threat at all, we immediately tell parents that there's been a threat, we are assessing it. Is that the alternative? That's what I'm wondering. Timeliness would be as soon as we hear a threat of any sort, a concern.
You've got two options, is to have a flow chart that you're going to say, you have to follow this flow chart, and if you don't, you're going to be in trouble because we're going to come back and criticize you, or we're going to leave what you just said, is to say, I think that I should leave it up to our administration to decide themselves what our threat level is, and they can inform as they see fit. That's our two options. And that we got one that was real outlined here, black and white, they must do it within 3 minutes or whatever we were talking. Now we're going back to, I trust our administration to do what they feel is right.
I don't necessarily think you can accurately assess in 3 minutes or less.
I agree. That's why I like the idea of
That's
going
what I
right
see.
back to where we were.
Where we were with policy and clarity. I mean, it's different than, but I agree. But because there is no playbook and we don't know what is going to come, we have to trust our administration to handle it.
Every scenario is going to be different. You can't plan each and every scenario. We have things that none of us have even thought about that could happen tomorrow, and we can't dictate how we expect it to be handled.
And truly, you're never going to dispel rumors.
Exactly.
We're never going to be able to take that piece out of there, because everyone is always going to have a different view on what is happening and a different level.
Yes, you're right.
Any further discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second, and that was for the purposes of discussion. What I might suggest is that those motions be taken back, and then I would, and after that, I would accept a motion to adopt this document with the following change, which you have, Trish, is that correct? Okay, so can I have the second taken back from that first motion for the purpose of discussion?
Who made the second?
I'll take it back.
All right.
And I'll take back the motion.
All right, would you like to make the new motion, which is to adopt this document with the changes that were recommended? And could you read that, Trish?
Recommended added under C in the document, communication to begin once threat level is assessed and communication is approved by ICS.
I will make that motion.
Okay, that's a motion that's been made. And a second again,
Second.
Kevin? All right, is there any discussion at this point? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider Paul Johnson as WASB Region 1 representative.
I see the position for the Region 1 rep for the Wisconsin Association School Board is up. It's currently being held by Stu Olson, who's on the Chalet School Board. I've been going to the convention each and every year, and I understand what the association is about. I met with Stu, spent a couple hours discussing what the role is, what the responsibilities are, and I'm asking the board if you would be willing to allow me to run for the position of the Region 1 rep for the Wisconsin Association School Board. I'm aware that there is one other person that has turned in their name already, and is considering, hasn't actually turned in the name, so there would be two of us, and it would be decided at the October 3rd meeting, and the position would not take over until after the convention in January. So that would give me some time to free up some other things in my life and give me some time to do this. They meet primarily on weekends, so it would not include, wouldn't get into my way of this activities or my business that I work on.
Do we need to make a motion to approve you, Paul? Do you know?
I have the application here. It states that it has to be nominating by the school board presidents, and that's it. So I don't know if you take the direction by the board or if you yourself has the ability to do this.
Yeah. Well, and I'll ask the board. Would somebody like to make a motion to consider Paul Johnson and to recommend him as a WASB Region 1 representative? Make it official. I will. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Does anybody want to discuss Paul? All right, thank you. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Was there four, or do I have to say aye also?
You don't have to.
Okay.
You always vote for yourself,
have to.
remember?
Yeah, remember, always vote for yourself. Are you going to?
Yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is it.
Thank you.
All right, I will sign that at the end of the meeting, Paul. Thank you, and thank you for doing that. All right, the next item on the agenda is I consider technology office storage area network, or SAN. Hugh?
Just real briefly here, as Mr. Holland outlined earlier tonight, SAN is a storage area network. It's the big device we use to store all the different district data, information, servers, things like that. We have 2 of them currently that are both older. One of them is at the point of end of life. So we had budgeted this year, working with Mrs. Grindell into the tech budget, to replace that in such a manner that we will purchase a new SAN that combines the storage capacity to handle the usage of what we do on 2. The second oldest one we have becomes what we call a disaster recovery site that we will ultimately locate off-site here, so in the event of a disaster we can bounce back quicker, that kind of thing. So based on the recommendation of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, we're just looking for the go-ahead to go ahead and get that purchased so we can make that a fall project to install and run up. Are there any questions?
And it's in the budget, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not at this time, but after we make a motion, we might ask you a question.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I doubt it. Your information was pretty clear. So is there a motion to consider, to consider purchasing Nimble SAN? Is that Nimble SAN through?
Nimble is the brand of the product.
Nimble SAN through Heartland Business Systems.
I'll make the motion.
For $45,266.03. Okay, and Robert has made that motion.
I'll second.
And there's been a second. Is there any discussion? Hugh, did you do your work?
Yeah, we collected bids from 2 vendors. There was a third one that dropped out of the competition, and this is the one that is budget friendly. It's a reliable system that's being used in other area districts like Hvac. We'll be happy with what we have moving forward, and we'll be truly positioned now for the idea of disaster recovery, of having something that is off-site that you can connect to restore things in the event of the cyber terror that I have to worry about. So.
Perfect. All right,
How,
thank you.
can I ask,
You bet.
what do you feel the lifespan is for something like this? Are we going to be back in 10 years doing this again, or?
5 to 7 years. It just
Okay.
depends on growth of storage and needs like that. The current one we have is 8 years old, so I mean, it is at the end of life, basically, to the point where it costs more to buy support for it than it does to start shopping around for a new one to replace it moving forward. And like I said, it's this idea of being able to have the ability to restore things in a quick and timely manner in the event of you had something that, was anything from a natural disaster to somebody just, we got hacked or something like that. So it's a good solution to have in place.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Hugh. Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I have it written down right here that we need to have a roll call vote. Thank you.
Erin Burst,
Yes.
Deb Olson,
Yes.
Robert Holland,
Yeah.
Karen Swanson.
Yes,
Kevin King.
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
motion carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to discuss the Railroad Memories Museum SMS caboose proposal. I need a motion to open the discussion.
I'll make that motion.
All right?
I'll second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded to discuss the Railroad Memories Museum caboose proposal. So Tim presented tonight a small amount as compared to what he presented to us at the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Is that correct, Robert? You were there with that one. And so we're here tonight to at least make the others that weren't there aware of that situation, what they are proposing. Robert, as a Buildings and Grounds person, do you have anything that you would like to say?
Well, I mean, we took in the proposal, and I don't know that we came up with any recommendation other than I think we all agreed that there are some people in this community who really like that caboose where it is, and some people may be indifferent. I don't think there's anyone who wouldn't like it, but we thought that, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, that we thought the community should have chances to weigh in on this particular issue so that we just don't do it willy-nilly. It's something that we need to put out there and see what people are talking about. You know, do they like the idea, or they prefer nothing, that we do nothing, or maybe there are alternatives. Maybe we find a way to get us another train in its place or something. I don't know. We've not really discussed it, and it's being presented for the second time, and that's pretty much where we're at.
Right, you have to understand that when the presentation, and I'm kind of speaking to the crowd right now, when the presentation was made at the committee level, at that point, only the people that were on the committee and at that meeting heard that presentation. And so we don't want to move into this too quickly, although Tim is passionate and he's a great leader, and he's, you know, Tim, you presented a pretty good idea of what you would like to consider. It might behoove you to give the entire board a little bit more information via an email or a letter, so that we can see exactly what your plans are, okay? We don't have to decide on this tonight. We want the community to be aware that the railroad, what do you call it? I will ask you, Tim, what do you call your group?
Railroad Memories Museum.
The Railroad Memories Museum. You know, what does the community think? Do you think that would be a great place to have that caboose that was donated by a family? Is there an emotional tie? Is there a reason why to leave it at the middle school? And this is a public meeting, and we're not hiding anything. We want to know what the community feels about that. So if we could get some input from people at home, or contact, you could send an email to me if you'd like to, or to Robert, who's the head of that committee. And we certainly aren't saying there's no way, Jose, all right, not at all. We just need a little bit more information on it. And if we have questions, Tim, then we can do a little communication with you, you know, you could lay out some facts, and perhaps we could then put it on next month's agenda also. We're certainly not saying this is all, we're done, we're not going to make a decision, because we need to make a decision one way or another, yes or no, about that. And we have some, we don't get to just go out and talk and make, you know, individual plans with this. So this is where we discuss it as a whole committee.
I'd be willing to discuss some options with you sometime, so yeah. I can put anything together that you want.
Sure, and perhaps, again, Robert could put you on the next Buildings and Grounds and Budget Committee, because we still have September when we'll have just the regular committees, and as we said, we are going to move into the Committee of the Whole, I believe. So, yeah, let's just keep in touch, and if we come up with some questions, I'll send them to you, okay?
I do have one
Deb?
question. Is there any other option other than just a storage building? Because I think I think the nostalgic part of it is the problem with everyone.
That's one of the reasons why I said that initially we would like to see the Industrial Arts Department take it. They could design something that would be more of a railroad type theme, rather than just going down and picking out a building. You know, you could do a caboose type theme. There's lots of different options. I would be more than willing to work with the kids at the Industrial Arts Department to help them design something.
So we could have some further discussion even with Tim at the next committee meeting. I think that's where the discussion will probably go. Paul, you had something?
I was going to ask, do we have policies in place right now as to how the district gets rid of equipment, or how the district gets rid of property or a vehicle? I mean, do we as the board have to go to the community and say this should be addressed at an annual meeting, or how should this be discussed? You know, or do we just as a board have the ability just to to say we think this is a good idea, we're going to go along with it, we're going to do this?
We need to look at that.
Was this item donated to begin with? I guess that's the question.
Yes, it was donated originally.
So the question I have is, once something is donated, if the community feels it served its useful life, does the community have to, do we just go along with the community's decision to get rid of it, or are we just going to let the annual
The only
meeting?
that donated Paul is here tonight.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, once it's been donated, it now belongs to this district. This district owns this piece of property.
Well, and that's one of the things that we're
That's-
going to have to look up.
Yeah,
All right.
and that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I'm
is
not-
can we just give it back, or do we have to go back? I think that we need a lot of input from the community. People I've talked to in the community have no idea that this was being discussed tonight.
And that's why we're discussing
Right.
it tonight, and we're not making
Right,
any
exactly.
decisions.
Right.
So that it will be available for people to listen to if they'd like to, and also then to give us some information. I'll walk down the streets and get the information from them if I need to.
Karen, if I may, in that, again, I would like to reiterate the fact that this was brought up at the Buildings and Grounds Committee and was decided that the community needs to have an input on this, and I would strongly encourage anybody out there that's listening or whatnot there, if you have it is an identity issue. And people feel strongly about identity, so we need to hear what your concerns are one way or the other. So please contact us.
I'd be willing to say that in April at the next school board election, I'd be willing to say, put a questionnaire on the ballot for the people to answer. Do you feel this is a good idea as they vote for our school board members? Do you think, it doesn't have to be binding, but at least it would give us some idea what the community thinks.
But what's the timeline as far as the restoration process for that to sit a whole nother winter?
We don't have a timeline yet.
Okay.
And I'm not so sure that, I'm not saying this for certain, but I don't really think that this is an issue of political nature that you want a referendum on a school board election.
Yeah, I think that's going above, I think that's going beyond the scope of what.
That this would end up being an educational thing. Restoration, I mentioned this at the meeting. The kids would have an opportunity to see what one looked like when it was fully restored. So, I mean, it's not like, poof, it's gone, it's not in the community anymore. It's still going to be in the community. It's just not going to be, it would not be in the location where it's at right now. So.
I have our policy in front of me, Paul, just to answer your question. And it says that any sale of property belonging to but not needed by the district must be authorized by the annual meeting. But that's not the case. And equipment, which it's not equipment, that doesn't work for us either. Non-saleable items shall be disposed of in a manner most advantageous to the district, but that's not the case either. It's a kind of we would give something to the Railroad Museum and they would give us something in return. So it's not really in our policy. So it just isn't quite there. So at this point, I would suggest that we take no action and that we continue to discuss it. All right. So there's been a motion and a second.
I don't believe it's necessary. It was listed as a discussion item.
All right, very good. So we did not make a decision on it. Thank you. All right, the next item, thank you, by the way, for all of you coming tonight, and if you'd like to speak with me, I'm available. Not right after the meeting, though. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is to consider the addition of safety coordinator on extra duty schedule. Thank you.
So the recommendation coming forward is that safety coordinator be added to the co-curricular pay schedule, which would become part of the employee handbook, and it would be on the level of a coach or an advisor. And in your board docs document, you have the particulars of the duties and what the proposed pay is as well.
Is there a motion to provide, or is there a motion to add the safety coordinator position to the co-curricular pay schedule.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, I'll second it then.
All right, then Aaron has made the motion and Paul has seconded it. Is there any discussion? Is this position filled? Do we have somebody that is already our coordinator?
So you've had Sir Hansen functioning in that position, but also you'll recall when you approved the custodial foreman position, they were taking over some of these duties. So the custodial foreman has some responsibility for this, and this would be putting it on the schedule as an additional duty for the person who carries out the part that the custodial foreman isn't doing.
So it's a new position. All right.
It's a revised position. Yes.
Right. So so then I'm going to ask the pay schedule. It says the amount is $2,500.
Correct.
Would that be shared by those two positions
No,
then?
this would just be one person, and the custodial foreman has some school safety duties listed as part of their duty description.
Okay. Is there any other further questions or discussion? Hearing none? It's a
Roll call.
We'll have a roll call vote on that, please.
Karen Hirsch.
Yes.
Deb Wilson.
Yes.
Kevin King.
Yes.
Tyler Holman.
Yes.
Karen Johnson.
Yes.
Paul Thompson.
Yes.
All right. Motion carried. Item L is to consider the first reading of policy 8315. And Paul, you explained that when you explained your meeting.
What it is it's basically, what it's doing is it's telling us that we have to preserve documents when we're notified of litigation at that time. So some of our documents maybe would expire at a certain time. We wouldn't keep them after a certain length of time according to policy, but if we're notified that there's a policy, that there's something's going on by somebody, we have a duty then to preserve and to do everything we can to make sure they don't go away.
And this was a recommendation of Neola.
Yes.
Okay. So we need, is this an update, or is it a new policy?
This will be a new policy.
All right, thank you. All right, is there a motion to have the first reading of policy 8315?
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading.
I'll second.
All right, the motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is item M, which is to discuss the school perception survey results. Are we going to have them up on the screen so people can see them, or will it just simply be a bit of a discussion?
I think it'll be a discussion and ultimately looking towards receiving and placing on file those survey results.
Okay. Are you going to present them?
I am prepared to speak to the part that we talked about in the Personnel Committee, and that's the longitudinal study that you have in board documents, and it compares the 2016-17 school perception survey results with the 2017-18 school perception survey results. So it'd be all district employees had the opportunity to participate, and the rate of participation was quite high this year as it was a year before. I just would point you in the direction of the boxes that are coded either green or red, because in the school perceptions application of statistics, anything with a 0.2 change is statistically significant. So anything 0.2 or greater, there's been some change. So you can see within that longitudinal study, there have been some of those areas. Certainly some pieces that we need to continue to work on, and some pieces that are going quite well that we'd look to sustain. After the Personnel Committee meeting, or out of the Personnel Committee meeting, we had a request for the more aggregated data, the more comprehensive data. So you also have access to the multi-page worth of survey questions and results as well. So that's kind of a brief overview of the documents that you have in board docs.
What are you saying after tonight, then this will be available for the public to see? Or what point does the public see it?
Last year, we did put the school perception survey results out for the community to view. So if that's, if that's the direction you want to see it go, we certainly can make that available.
I think we should. So, first of all, I will make a motion to discuss the school perception survey results and to post them on the school website for the community to view. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. And is there any discussion? Did you get a chance to look at those?
I looked at them, and when my question was, if it's a 0.2 change or greater, that would be considered significant, whether it be a positive or a negative. And that comes down to how many actually responded to the survey. So if you had a 0.2 change, that could mean that just 2 people of the whole staff switched from this way to that way, which reflected those changes. So how many responded? How many are we talking about? Do we know?
Yeah, we do know. Let's see. I saw that today in one of the charts. Let me just see if I can find that. I can't tell you right offhand how many did.
What I'm saying is that could be a change of personnel or somebody that had a change of opinion.
It certainly is.
So
Yeah,
one or 2 people could throw it off quite a ways.
It certainly could. Oh, right here on
Page 3.
on some of the questions, there were 56 people that responded. On some, there's 55, some 54 in the area of the teaching staff. So
That's
some,
one person is a 0.2 then.
correct.
One person is
Correct.
a 0.2 so.
Exactly.
So you're gonna give this out to the information to the public and really, I mean, one person changed their mind, it reflects a totally different.
So all I'm saying is that the reds and the blues
Greens.
are the reds and the greens are what we should focus on. But what I'm also saying is that if we have 1 or 2 people made that swing to make that significance, that's, in my mind, is not that great.
Well,
A little context.
Right. It's like, you felt this way a year ago, you don't feel quite that way this year, you answered it a little differently, and that made it a swing of a 0.2.
Correct.
but that's why this company does these surveys, and they have statistical minimums that
Right.
qualify statistical significance based on, I mean, not just, if we had 5,000 people take the survey, the statistical significance would remain the same regardless of how many people flip-flopped. So it's statistically significant because it's statistically significant. We shouldn't be worried about how many people changed it. What we should be comparing, and why I think it's a good idea to present it to the public, is that we show longitudinal data and watching to see if we're making progress in areas where we've struggled and if we're still declining in areas of struggle. And that's what we've decided as a board, to be accountable, transparent, and get feedback from our staff. I think that we shouldn't minimize the difference. We should use it as a tool to inform our decisions and the way that we as a district move forward. And I see what you're saying, but I just wanted to qualify
Yeah, I
that
know.
piece of it.
Okay, so, and I think that our new administrators can use this also to take a look at the opinion. It's a perception. Yes, sir.
So part of the 3 new principals' work early on in their tenure has been to review a lot of different school data. This is certainly an important part of it, because what you'll see them bring forward to you to brief you on are school improvement plans in the month of October. So with your district priority of stabilizing our base within the district, this is important. This is an important piece, and you will hear each building address this in a school improvement goal in October.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so the motion has been made, and we're discussing it to not only discuss it, but put it on the on the website. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none? All those that approve indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider an SHS SMS music positions.
Can I just give a little?
You've already, go ahead.
So we had come to you back in the spring with full-time equivalent counts to establish a preliminary budget which we could staff off of. Subsequent to that, in the month of June, we had resignations that were unanticipated. And so just a couple insights to share. One is that we really did try to fill these positions over the summer months. Really pulled out all stops to fill these, and unfortunately, not successfully. And the other piece is, we come to you with a recommendation for more time, and I want you to know it's in the budget, because when you approved when you adopted the preliminary budget to staff off of, those people were still employees here, and so the budget was financially this would not be a burden onto the district. It's not something that's not there. Mr. Schurz.
Yes, okay. So Dennis, would you come and present a bit?
Sure. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So as Dr. Aslan has mentioned, we worked hard to try to figure out what was best and attract applicants for the positions that were there. My observation certainly is going through this process that, and I think it's what I've experienced from you as board members, that we want highly qualified individuals in all of our content area. Band and choir certainly requires that. It's a skill set that we can't fill necessarily very easy with a long-term sub without experience. It would be like putting me in a chemistry class. It's not going to work. So once again, that's, as I looked at it, and of course not being part of the discussion, because I wasn't on staff at the point when the resignation came in late in the year, I think last day of school. Looking at the whole process, my goal as a building principal is certainly to have a highly qualified staff, but also more importantly offering what students need to be successful. And when I think I mentioned in the time that we talked, we got to know each other a little better. I want to see all students actively involved in the things that we have to offer here at Spooner High School. And certainly band and choir is one of those things that many students, that's one of the things that brings them to high school. And their memorable experiences, and certainly a big part of their development. So, long story short, the proposal that was sent to you basically states that here's what we did, here's the timeline, here's the things we tried to do, and at this point, we don't have what we need to move on. And I really believe a big part of that is if we can't offer a full-time position, that we may not have anybody when school starts, and then I'm not sure what we'll do. So we're really working hard at trying to fill this position because of certainly the need of students that we have here. We've got a lot of competitions coming up. We have a student body that's very concerned. Those that are in band and choir want to get going. And I don't have an answer for them. And that's why, like I said, we kind of went back to the drawing board. How can we attract a highly qualified person? And more than that, how do we get somebody that can sustain and build a program? Because that's what we need right now. We need to raise that level, and somebody that has the passion to come in and do that for us here at Spooner. Questions for me?
I will ask a question. It's posted as consider an SHS SMS music position, but in your letter, you're only talking about the high school
Correct.
Music position.
Correct. It would be a high school choir band position.
Okay. That's the one that we're dealing with.
Right.
And do we have a middle school music person?
Not yet.
And is that posted?
Well, the way it's posted right now is SHS and SMS because they share staff, right?
Right.
So the effect of this would be that SHS would have a band and choir person, and if that is approved, the result of that would be SMS would have a band choir person.
It would?
It would.
Is that an every other day program, the music program? Can one person do both of those jobs?
A lot of music people are dual licensed in band and choir.
Right.
So,
And they can cover high school and middle school for us?
right, but, yes.
Yes.
But what they're asking for you tonight is for a person for high school, which in turn leaves a person that we have for middle school.
Leaves one.
So it would be
Two full-time
positions, one at the
positions.
middle school, one at the high school.
But they should be specialized quite a bit.
Hold on. All right, so I know what you're asking for, I just want, yes.
So the proposal is
I
to
got it.
add another .5 full-time equivalent
Correct.
music time.
That's what that's asked for. So we are approving a high school, high school band choir person, correct? That's what this says. But we also have a position of middle school choir and band.
If I may, so we have the ability to assign. So we have a one full-time FTE and a half-time FTE right now, and we have the ability to do assignment with those, with staff members that are on board. And as we put the half-time position out there, that's what we were not able to successfully fill.
So you're asking us to increase that to a full-time?
Correct.
Correct, because, correct me if I'm wrong, the person that taught music last year, one of the musics was also had another assignment outside, in the classroom section over there.
That's correct. They were the one person in the state of Wisconsin that was licensed as a music person and as a high school social studies teacher.
Yes. Okay, very good. All right.
Are we going to be back here with a special meeting to work on the middle school before the school year starts?
The middle school right now is posted as a...
Can you speak to the microphone so the people at home can hear this? Thank you. This will help our clarification.
The middle school right now is posted as a long-term sub because we have a person who is out right now.
And how long has that been posted?
Oh,
Approximately a week.
Okay.
Maybe two?
I think probably a week.
Okay, a week. All right. Okay, so we're working on filling that one also.
correct.
All right, so the motion that we need is to consider, what would be,
To increase from .5 to 1 point.
okay.
That's correct.
FTE.
To consider the music position from a .5 to a 1.5. I mean, 1.0.
I make that motion.
5.5, okay. And do we have that motion?
I make that motion.
Okay.
I second it.
We're jumping at it.
So can I ask one question? Let's say
Yes.
that we have an applicant who is very confident in choir but not confident in band, and an applicant who's confident in band but not as in choir. Can you special assign them to be band at high school and middle school, choir at high school and middle school?
We are going to do our very best to get the right people in the
For the
right
right
positions in these very late days before school starts. So if you approve this, it's
You have the
likely that this
flexibility.
position will be posted on weekend tonight yet.
Okay.
There's a great sense of urgency to get these situations resolved, and this halftime equivalent addition, I believe, will be a step in the right direction in resolving those challenges.
Okay,
Well, we
thank you.
certainly don't have much of a choice here but to agree to raise this to 1.0, so maybe we can get somebody. But, you know, I just wish this board would consider really getting behind the music department, because some of our best people and our best community members have always been musically inclined, and studies have shown that music helps form people, and it it triggers creative juices and it makes people better students. And we have always had a really good music department for many years. The choir, we suffered a great loss when we lost a very good choir director a few years back. And I don't think we've recovered. And I would agree with one of the community members tonight that we need 2 FTEs. We need more. We need a vibrant, we need to be participatory, which we are not. And we need to get behind a music program like we had in the past. And I can't stress that more. I wish with the lack of a deficit that we have now, we're in pretty good shape financially, always in need of more money, however. You know, maybe we can hire more people instead of, and start replacing people and adding people, not only for music, but for Spanish and everything else. Let's start adding FTEs and not stumbling through and finding ourselves in a situation. We didn't ask to be put in this situation, I agree. But we need to demonstrate to the community that we're going to try and get back to where we were. Music is extremely important to this community, and we need to do something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, if I may, in that there, I share Mrs. Medley's sentiments. Our daughters were in the same program. We had a wonderful program, and it is something the school desperately needs, I feel. As a result of the program that we have, I'm proud to say my daughter is going tomorrow to UMD, and she is doing music education as a major, thanks to the program that we had here, which was top-notch. And I would like us to see us maintain that there, so this is needed.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Let's have a roll call vote on this one, please.
Yes.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The topic is to consider volleyball coaching assignments, and so I need a roll call vote to go into closed session.
Yes.
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 We are now in closed session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Do you have vouchers for me to sign, Chris?
Yes, I will email you the